Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We have a quorum, and we'd like to open the March 27th, 2025 Public Select Board session. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is anyone here for public comment? Okay. Just quickly, a review and approval of minutes. Everybody have a chance to take a look at them?
Make a motion to review, approve the minutes of March 13th, 2025.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Okay.
I'll go quick.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, just in terms of meetings next week, the board meets at their usual time next Thursday night. I'll give an update under old business, but the Finance Committee ended up voting on all the warrant articles, including all the FY26 budget votes that were required, and so I'll give you an update on that later, so they're not meeting next week. Just two quick updates for you. A few weeks ago, we were notified by the Construction Management Association of America New England chapter. It's a mouthful, but the Sandwich Boardwalk has been awarded a special project award for the best construction project under $10 million, and that's going to be taking place at a ceremony in Boston in the beginning of June. So we'll be sure to let you know when that happens. GEI, our engineering company, submitted the application for it, and one of the requirements is they have to put together a video for the awards luncheon. So I'll let you know when that comes up. And then more good news, just to update the board. About 2 months ago, JERA Americas, which is the company that owns the power plant, reached out to us. They have an internal policy that any of the revenue that they generate from any cell towers on their property gets given back out to nonprofits rather than they keep that money. And that had built up for a couple of years, so they reached out to us and we got them a pretty long list of projects to consider. They got back to us and identified which ones they were most interested in, so I'll just go down what they've donated significant money to. We got the funds earlier this week. So for the Sandwich Recreation Department, they've donated $30,000 for sand renourishment and other improvements at the Oak Crest Cove Beach, Peters Pond. They've also donated $50,000 to the Morse Road additional recreational facilities and playground features that we're trying to add to that property, which is near the Little League fields and the multi-purpose court and the volleyball court that we've been working with a number of local residents with. They donated $30,000 to the Senior and Community Services Department for utility expense support for those who are having trouble paying their utilities. So that's doesn't matter what age you are, through the through Susan Moranchek's department, and Rita Walstead, our social worker and outreach coordinator with the Cal. And then lastly, to the Sandwich Housing Authority, they donated $30,000 to help with a rental assistance program for people who are having trouble with housing costs. So it's a lot of money that they donated. They wanted to keep it local, and that's what they chose to give the money to. So we want to thank them for that.
Indeed, thank you very much. Did we respond with a thank you?
I'm gonna. When they first said it was coming, we responded a lot, but not since we got the check. So I wrote myself a note. I'll be sure to do that tomorrow.
Terrific. Thank you very much. If we can skip down, please, to the public hearing. The Select Board of the Town of Sandwich hereby gives notice that it will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 27th, 2025, at 7:05 p.m. in Sandwich Historic Town Hall Auditorium, 130 Main Street, Sandwich, Massachusetts, on proposed amendments to the Sandwich General Bylaws set of criteria for the use of short-term rentals in Sandwich. Full text of the proposed amendments, along with the current general bylaws, may be reviewed the following ways. Request a PDF from the Office of the Select Board at mcarroll@sandwichmass.org. Visit the Office of the Select Board at 100 Route 6A, Sandwich, Massachusetts. Call 508-888-5144 if other accommodations are needed. Anyone wishing to be heard on the subject will be afforded an opportunity at that time. Motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockter. Have a roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Leanne Drake. I am your Director of Community Development, and I'm here tonight to go over a proposed general bylaw change to include regulations on short-term rentals. So why this is coming about is that the 10th edition of the Building Code was published on January 1st and is in effect currently. So it changed the use table, and now we have to require an annual safety inspection for all short-term rentals. So we're proposing a bylaw that complements this effort from the building department. And just for your knowledge, that a short-term rental is defined as an owner-occupied, tenant-occupied, or non-owner-occupied property, including but not limited to an apartment, a house, a cottage, a condominium, or a furnished accommodation that is not a hotel, motel, boarding or lodging house, or guest house, inn, bed or breakfast establishment. And it's where at least one room or unit is rented to an occupant or occupants for 1 to 30 consecutive days at a time. All accommodations are generally reserved in advance, and all short-term rentals are transient in nature and are not rented from the same occupant month to month. So that's a general overview of what we mean when we refer to short-term rentals. I'm going to run through some of the basic regulations. The purpose and intent of this bylaw is to balance private, neighborhood, and public interests. So for some of the general provisions, trash should be removed after every stay, and it should be picked up at least once a week. Parking should be on site and not on the roadways. We're not going to allow renting for less than 2 consecutive nights a week, so no nightly renting. Smoke, carbon monoxide, and heat detectors shall be in compliance with the building code for the 10th edition. So for types of rentals, they shall be at residential uses. So no large-scale events, no wedding venues, corporate events, class and family reunions, and photo shoots. No events shall include tents or amplified music, and they shall not adversely affect the residential character of the neighborhood. Pets would have to have adherence to all state and local regulations and laws. The use of RVs and campers for sleeping is not allowed. And short-term rentals shall meet all local state regulations, including but not limited to building codes, sanitary codes, etc. So then as we move on to enforcement, the provisions of the bylaw are enforced by the building commissioner. For violations of any of the regulations I stated, $100 for your first offense, $200 for your second, $300 for your third, and each subsequent offense thereafter. Each day constitutes a new offense. And then if you have a repeat offender, we have the option to suspend a certificate of registration for up to 3 years. That will be held at a Board of Health public hearing and be noticed in the paper. So that's kind of a general overview on the short-term rental regulations. If they were to pass at Maytown meeting, they would go into effect. It would be a general bylaw, so there would be no grandfathering of current existing short-term rental uses. It would affect every property owner going forward. For Sandwich, we have approximately 700 short-term rentals that are currently paying tax, a short-term rental tax. So that would be an additional 700 inspections a year for the building department. And then this code would help enforce any issues that we would have from repeat offenders that are causing noise, nuisance, or hazard in the neighborhood. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Yes?
Yep. So I'm going to ask the same questions that I asked before. So on the, because I'm concerned about the penalties. And it's the same question I rose before, was that it seems like if you're renting the house out for $10,000 a week, a $300 penalty is not a consequence, nor is, it appears that they're capped at $5,000. Was that a state statutory capping, or is that a local?
It's a state statutory capping. I did ask town council if we could increase that amount, and they stated that we could not.
Okay. And then the second one would be, because I know that this has occurred locally here as well, is like weddings and things like that. Is there a separate permit for that? Or is that, if it's a short-term rental property that was booked for a wedding, is that something that we permit separately, or is it that's game over for that property?
We would have to see it as two separate uses because people often host weddings at their homes. We certainly wouldn't want anyone to not be able to go forward and do that.
Right.
I think as using your home as a wedding venue for short-term rentals is slightly different, and that gets into disturbing the peace of a neighborhood if it's on a regular basis.
Right. And then the last one I have is the parking, because I know that we've touched on that already, with the, off-street or on-street parking, that there has to be ample parking. And then that's going to run into an enforcement issue, I think, with the PD, especially, specifically, I think we all, it's town neck.
I think with this this bylaw, it does help with the enforcement part because currently we have no rental regulations, short-term rental regulations. So when we get calls from people, they can either go to the health department if there's anything sanitary, or they go to the PD if it's noise, nuisance, or traffic. With these being listed, it provides a safety net, and if there is a repeat offender, they could have their license revoked for up to 3 years if they were to continuously rent to those that were parking on the street or causing any form of blockages.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to speak for the PD, but I'm sure that they have a plan of action. Does anyone in the public have any questions on this issue?
Yep.
Sir, would you please use the mic? Yes. And to remind all of us to make sure that the green light is on and you speak into the microphone, please, sir. And
Okay, I got it.
and
Hey, my name's Gary Sullivan, and I am looking at this from the perspective of a neighbor.
Sir, just, and your address too, please?
Excuse me?
You stated your name and your address too, please?
Oh, Gary Sullivan, 22 Fieldstone Drive in Sandwich,
Thank you.
okay? I'm looking at this from the perspective of a neighbor. I've lived here for 30 years, and I live in a place that is zoned, in our zoning. And our zoning says that it's residential, and I don't think that changing that to allow short-term rentals goes along with, what I bought and what everybody else in my neighborhood and in many other neighborhoods in Sandwich have bought. You buy a house in a residential neighborhood, the house next to you and across from you, they're residences. A short-term rental is not a residence. And I don't think that areas with R1, R2 zoning should be included in potential short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockler. Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The public hearing is closed. Sure.
All right, let's see. Make a motion, we accept the proposed general town bylaws amendment for short-term rentals as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Okay. Let's move on down then to annual meeting warrant overview and article explanation.
Yeah, so we have 4 department heads with us tonight. It'd be great if Leanne, she's right there. We just keep going just to highlight some of the other articles that are on the warrant. I know the board has talked for seemingly every meeting for the last 2-3 months about the financial articles, and so our experts are here on the handful of non-financial articles. So Leanne's going to touch on a couple of the proposed zoning changes. Ben Steich is here from assessing about the 2 so-called HERO Act proposals that we're presenting to town meeting. Dave Sullivan, our treasurer collector, is going to highlight a recommended adoption of part of the general laws that town council has suggested, and then town clerk Taylor White is here on another acceptance article of a part of the general laws related to nomination papers. And then it's really important before he goes, you should also talk about a proposed ballot question that came in after the required date from a group of petitioners. So start with Leanne, I would say.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. Leanne Drake, Director of Community Development. So before you on the warrant, we have 2 zoning articles. The first one regards accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. The reason that this is such a hot topic in the state of Massachusetts right now is due to the Affordable Homes Act. It was signed into law on August 6, 2024, and it made ADUs a protected class in Massachusetts, which means we cannot unreasonably regulate them. Our existing bylaw had some discrepancies with the state's new bylaw for adoption, so we revised that to come in compliance with the state. So Section 8, as we see here, allows accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, under 900 square feet to be built by right in all single-family zoning districts. So what changed versus our current bylaw and the proposed bylaw? So under the new state act, municipalities can no longer regulate owner occupancy or a familial relationship between the ADU and the primary structure. You can no longer require a special permit or other discretionary zoning for the use or rental of an ADU, and you cannot require more than 1 parking space for an ADU that's located out of half a mile from a commuter rail station, subway, ferry terminal, or bus station. So what do we mean by an accessory dwelling unit? It's a self-contained housing unit, inclusive of sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities on the same lot as a principal dwelling, and it's subject to other applicable dimensional and parking requirements. So an ADU can be constructed within a single family, meaning that it can be a renovated basement, it could be a second floor of a living space, it can be attached to a single family dwelling, a garage conversion, an addition to the home, or it can be a standalone cottage style development. The construction of an ADU still must comply with all of the state building codes, Title V codes, conservation codes, Historic District Committee, and all other zoning and local laws and regulations. The dimensional requirements for Section 2600 cover the creation of the ADU. What that means is 2600 is our dimensional schedule. So setbacks still apply, lot coverage still applies, but we no longer can regulate by lot size. So every home within the town of Sandwich is allowed to have some type of ADU by right. So we're required to have at least 1 off-street parking space in addition. It must meet our driveway regulations through the engineering department. The principal dwelling and the accessory dwelling unit cannot be severed in ownership. They must remain together. It's accessory to the principal structure. It's not its own separate condo or dwelling that could be sold separately. It shall not be used for boarding and lodging or other commercial uses, including short-term rentals or seasonal rentals. The occupancy of the ADU is for a minimum lease of 12 consecutive months. Before I move on to the second one, I do just want to mention, so at the beginning of the presentation, the state came out with guidance in January that said we must adopt 900 square feet as the maximum for our ADUs. In March, they revised that a little bit late because we weren't able to update the zoning. It now seems that we could potentially go for a larger size. So what I've heard from the community through all of my public hearings and presentations that I've given on accessory dwelling units, the 900 square feet gross square footage is not large enough to accommodate what our community needs. Our current one was 900 square feet of habitable space. Habitable space does not include walkways, closets, bathrooms, and things of that nature. So we may have an opportunity to potentially revise that. I do meet with council tomorrow to see legally how we would revise that. And it was brought to our attention by Mr. Vaccaro, who's here tonight, who has attended the public hearings and stated that, you know, when you think of accessibility for the aging population, 900 square feet gross floor area just doesn't accommodate for wheelchairs or any type of accessibility requirements. So we may potentially just have to amend at town meeting, but we'll find out what the most straightforward way is to move forward. But that would be kind of the only change, is maybe make them slightly bigger if we're able to do that lawfully. And then the second change is commonly referred to as the merger doctrine. So previously it was a state law that was also changed under the Affordable Homes Act, but undersized lots held in common ownership after December 1998 merged for zoning purposes, meaning they were rendered unbuildable. Now, if you have a lot that was created lawfully, that is of at least 10,000 square feet, 75 feet of frontage, it can now unmerge for zoning purposes for the construction of a single-family home. They do have regulations on the size of the single-family home. It can't exceed 1,850 square feet. You must have 3 bedrooms, and it cannot be used for a short-term rental, so you'd have to put that restriction on it. The intent from the state was to provide more year-round single-family homes that could help boost the stock. Just from looking at what we have, I think I've identified potentially 40 lots that could unmerge through this process. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
The number one question that I've been asked about this is if a homeowner builds an ADU or construction ADU, does that stop the rental of the primary residence as a short-term rental?
Yes.
So that just the creation of an accessory dwelling unit on the property, the other structure cannot be a short-term rental, period?
Yes. So for the by right accessory dwelling unit, the property is restricted for its use as a short-term rental. The whole property can be rented, both the main dwelling and the ADU, but it has to be for year-round use.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I should have asked you this earlier. I know a lot of subdivisions in town have covenants, civil covenants between the owners of the subdivision, not town covenants. I would think state law supersedes those covenants, or is that a civil matter that the...
It's a civil matter.
they
You can
will
still
have to
regulate
figure
it within your homeowners association or condominium association. The same with short-term rentals too.
Is that both the short-term rental and the ADU? That's what I thought, yeah, so both.
Yeah, both could be regulated within your HOA.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well explained. Thank you. Director of Assessing, Ben Steitch.
Good evening. My name is Ben Steitch. I'm the Director of Assessing. I'm here tonight to talk about, I believe, which warrant articles 14 and 15 in regards to what they're calling the HERO Act, the act of honoring and empowering and recognizing our service members and veterans under Chapter 178 of the Acts of 2024. What this does is it adds 2 veteran exemption clauses, Clause 22I and 22J, into general law under Chapter 59, Section 5, which is a statute that establishes local property tax exemptions for the individuals, the veterans. Municipalities will be able to adopt these clauses, Clause 22I and 22J, for fiscal year 2026. Clauses 22I and 22J are local options that must be accepted by town to apply to the municipality. Acceptance requires a vote from the legislative body at town meeting. What is the impact of 22I? Clause 22I, if accepted, would increase the amount of tax exemption granted to the veterans on their domiciles under Clause 22, 22A, 22B, 22C, 22E, and 22F annually by the cost of living adjustment determined by the Department of Revenue based off the Consumer Price Index. For example, under the Clause 22, those gentlemen or women are receiving a $400 exemption. If you factor in a 5% CPI, that exemption amount would increase to $420. If we were to adopt the 22J, which I believe is Article 15, this provides an additional exemption amount up to 100% of the tax exempted through granted to the veterans on their domiciles under clauses 22, 22A, 22B, 22C, E, and F. To implement, as I mentioned earlier, the town must vote to accept the statute to establish the individual exemption percentage before July 1st, beginning of the fiscal year in which the percentage will first apply. The voted percentage will continue to apply in subsequent years unless or until another percentage is voted in before July 1st, beginning of that later fiscal year. So, what is the impact if the town decides to adopt 22I and 22J? Both clauses will operate together. So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, under Clause 22, the recipient receives a $400 exemption, and the community accepts 22I, and the CPA increases by 5%. The total exemption would increase to $420. If the community further adopts 22J, you could increase that amount up to 100%. So essentially, you'll double that exemption amount to $840. It's pretty straightforward.
Do we know what the total, not that it, yeah, I was gonna ask.
In the packet, there's a really good spreadsheet that Ben put together. And I think what the internal staff, and I believe what the assessors are most comfortable with, is in that second article, looking at an exemption of 25%.
So currently, right now, using based off of FY24 figures, we have approximately, plus or minus 320 veterans that are that get the exemption in various amounts. So it would actually, doing the COLA of 5%, it would increase the exemption amount by $8,500, just a little over, with the 22I. If we were to adopt a 22J at 25%, that would increase it another $45,000, basically, in exemption amounts.
I think it's important to know, too, from what we've been told, just historically, for any veterans exemptions for tax purposes, the state has been really good the following fiscal year of reimbursing us for that. What they've told us is if you adopt one of the percentage increases over and above the state amount, we will not get reimbursement for that amount. So I know it's somewhat confusing, municipal finance, but it basically means if we do the 25%, there'll probably be about another $50,000 we take from our overlay account.
Correct.
Pay for the increased exemption that we're not going to get reimbursed for, which we're fine because we think it's a very meritorious award for someone to consider. But it's one of the reasons we didn't think the 50 or 100% made sense when you look at the numbers and you look at what our total overlay account is for the whole year for everyone in town. That would eat up a huge percentage of that.
We also thought, when we looked at it, it's easier to start at the lower amount and be able to increase it as we go along, just to kind of see how it affects the overlay account to make sure that we have enough in there every year. As Bud mentioned, under the state reimbursement, for last year, for these clauses, they reimbursed the town $132,000. So we do get some money back, but, this is something that's, that has come up, and honestly, in my personal opinion, if it matters, it's important to get back.
I guess
to
our
the
understanding
veterans.
is a lot of towns aren't doing it, but we think it makes sense. We explained it to the Finance Committee on Tuesday night, and they voted to support the CPI adjustment and the 25%.
Indeed.
Any questions on that?
Good, Ben, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Town Treasurer Collector, Dave Sullivan. Good evening. Thank you, Dave. That's a mouthful. Thank you very much. There you go.
Thanks, Dave.
Taylor, could you make sure the green light's on too? Thanks.
Nobody could hear you, Dave.
Town Clerk, Taylor White.
But they did hear you say you can keep the money. Hi, guys, gentlemen, ladies. It's Taylor White, Town Clerk. I think it's proposed Article 17 on the draft warrant. This pertains to the nomination process for local town elections. In a nutshell, to make it as simple as possible, this is an effort to sort of just make the whole process a little bit neater. Under current Mass General Law, when we collect nomination papers, Town of Sandwich issues nomination papers roughly 6 weeks before they are due back. For an instance, this nomination period, the nomination papers were able to be pulled on February 6th and were due back by March 20th. This little Mass General Law basically allows us to neaten up the process and make it a little cleaner. It would institute 2 requirements. The first being that when a person looking to run for local office came to the office during the nomination period, they would literally actually sign something. I, John Doe, wish to run for fill in the blank. We would then issue the nomination papers. We basically do that now. We keep a roster, but this would actually make sure that they sign the papers saying they intend to run. The nomination papers would be issued like we normally do. There's, like I said, usually 6-week period between when the nomination opens and they're due back. This puts in a little more of a slight bit of a restriction. I don't really want to call it a restriction, but it just makes the process a lot neater. Right now, like I said, the deadline was the 20th of March. It will give a 48-hour window that you could pull papers. So the last day to pull nomination papers would be 48 hours prior to when they are due back. So it just helps it in our office streamline things a little neater. We know who's pulled papers, what's due back, so you don't have a mad rush at the end. A lot of towns have adopted this already. It's something Sandwich hasn't done. I was talking to my colleagues over the last couple of years, and a lot of them have done this, and it's just kind of neatened up their nomination process. But we intend to, as we always do during that process and that time, we advertise all the dates and put them on the website and make it clear to everybody what they're expected, or what we're expecting of them when they run for local office. So I would hope that you would support that and put that on for a town meeting to decide on the 5th. Does anyone have any questions?
Sounds appropriate to me. Thank you very much.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
I guess while Taylor's here, should we talk about the petition we got after the required date for, this is not a petition to get an article on the warrant, it's to be on the town election ballot.
Yeah, we received, I don't remember the exact date, the 12th of March, I think, was the date that it was submitted to the select board. There is state law, and the last time we had one of these was, I think, 2017. It allows citizens to petition the select board to have a non-binding public advisory question, which is the terminology they use. If you read the Mass General Law, it can be submitted, just needed 10 signatures. It was submitted to the board on the 12th. We certified that they did receive enough signatures to have it go forward. There is a little bit of a caveat in the sense that it's technically supposed to be either approved or disapproved by the select board 90 days prior to the election. So that deadline would have been early February, and we did not get it until mid-March. So it's up to you at this point. There's not a lot of remedy for the petitioners to, the remedy would be if the select board decided not to put the petition on the article, they would have 90 days to then collect about 1,600 signatures that would have to be collected in a period of a few weeks and then submitted to my office for certification. Then the non-binding citizen petition would go on the ballot. Because it was submitted so late, and because this is the first time that you guys, I think, are hearing about it, it's a little, that window is not very big, and they will not have very long if you decided not to put it on to do it. But it's in your purview whether or not you'd like to move forward and put the citizens advisory question on or not. If you decide not to, you would just advise the petitioners of your intention, and they could certainly go through the process of trying to obtain the signatures. Doesn't seem very realistic at this point to get 1,600 signatures in about, when's the finalize of the warrant? Like 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now. But that is the process. So the ball's in your court. The petitioners really should have submitted it earlier in order to give them a little recourse should you guys not choose to go forward with it. But that's the reality of where we stand right now. So you'll be hearing about that a little bit later. That's a brief overview of the position you're in tonight.
So I'm not sure if you want to vote to support to have that on the ballot, or if you say no, as Taylor said, they don't really have any recourse till the next town election.
I forget the exact nature of it. I believe it's something relative to Holtec.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
This is a petition that has gone around the entire Cape and Islands. Ironically enough, a lot of my colleagues in the clerk world did receive it in early January. I don't know why it wasn't received until mid-March here in Sandwich, but a lot of the other towns did receive it earlier in the year, which gave the select boards time to either approve or deny. I don't know what the outcome of most of the other towns' decisions were, but the timetable was a little more in line with where it should have been.
Taylor, I know when they submit it, they have this fact sheet. That doesn't get printed in the warrant, right? It's just the part that
Yeah, the fact sheet was just informational. What was requested to be put on the warrant was, I think it's some whereas language, sort of a whereas. The end result would be, it's a non-binding. If it had passed, if it's put on the ballot for May 8th, it would appear on the ballot. Should it receive enough votes from the voters, it's instructed that the town clerk then send the language that is on the petition to a variety of higher up elected officials, including Congress. I think the governor, the attorney general, and a few others. So it's kind of a formality. We've seen this before with petition articles at town meeting. We have seen these before back in 2017, but they're fairly rare. But under your direction tonight, I will either add it to the draft ballot or leave it off, and we can notify the petitioners.
Any discussion? I don't think I have a problem with it, but,
Yeah, it's a non,
right?
yeah. I'm fine with it going. I mean, it's a there's no risk for us.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve it for inclusion on the May 5th warrant.
Make a motion to include the petition for non-binding public advisory ballot question to be forwarded on to the May 5th town meeting.
Second.
I'm sorry, May 8th ballot.
8th ballot, I'm sorry.
May 5th.
Right, May 5th?
No, it's on the ballot, not the warrant.
It's on the ballot.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, gotcha. Okay. Motion by Mr. Hockter, second by Mr. George. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous.
All right, I will proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
So after that, I figured I'd just go through the rest of the warrant. Article 1 relates to the acceptance of the town reports and the brief summary of the long-range plan that's printed in the back of the warrant. So in your packet, I accepted all the changes that we talked about last week and then added in red the comments that Patrick had about doing some research on some other communities' experience with an annual goal-setting process. So I added a new item on that. And then really, other than that, I noticed some, punctuation things that needed to be corrected, and that was it. In the copy of the warrant that you guys had is a clean copy without anything highlighted in red. So if it's easier for read it without the track changes on, you could look at it there. But maybe we could, I think the goal is next week probably to vote to finalize the warrant contingent on any changes recommended by town council. So I would think by next Thursday, I'll have that put together pretty well. And if there's more changes you want, I could easily incorporate those over the time frame before we have to post the warrant. So that was Article 1. I'll go really quickly in case anyone's interested at home. The primary budget article for fiscal year 2026, which starts on July 1st, is Article 2. It's fair to say about 98% of the budget that we vote on is found in that one article, and pleased to report that a majority of the Finance Committee supported the FY26 budget with the additional $560,000 for the DPW road and in public infrastructure improvements, that so-called optimal outcome budget. So they supported what the board did. So really, there's no difference of opinion in terms of the vote taken by the Finance Committee and what the board voted a couple of weeks ago. So that's on the same page. And I'll go through the other ones even faster. The enterprise fund articles and budgets were approved as presented. The revolving fund appropriation limits were approved as presented. The capital budget was approved as presented, and I want to stress that it was a majority of the Finance Committee, not unanimous. State aid to highways program, which we vote every year, that was supported. The school cellular tower lease transfer to do work on the exterior fields at the middle high school, that was approved. Our required 20% beach parking account reappropriation got approved. The promotions fund allocations. And I should point out, like, articles that deal with the high school cell tower, the beach parking account, the sandwich promotions fund, all three of those articles are responsive to prior votes of town meeting many years ago that adopted either a special act or submitted a special act to the legislature for approval, or adopted a requirement where we had to do certain things every year. And so that's what those three articles do. Just thinking out loud, maybe in the future we could combine those three into one. But, if they're required, they're not. Granted, they're three different topics, but we're required to do them. So we at least have to recommend them for town meeting. Article 10 is to appropriate most of the balance that we've taken in the Water Infrastructure Investment Fund and reappropriate it for all the purposes allowed under that statute. That will just help us keep our wastewater efforts progressing, especially at the 3 public schools. Article 11 is something Heather can explain much better than me if needed. That's some additional appropriation of $50,000 from our opioid settlement funds It's restricted on what those funds could be else used for, and this would be for some additional opioid prevention outreach that the committee that she's been spearheading for quite a while has been working on for several years now. Article 12 is our normal CPA fund expenditure, where we vote our administrative costs, the required 10% allocations, and our debt payment. Article 13 is the $1.2 million to get added to the money that we had previously appropriated for restoration work here at Sandwich Town Hall, the historic building. Most of that money is for window replacement, water infiltration prevention, improving the siding, and touching up the roof. And then the next several articles are all related to what the department heads presented earlier, the 2 HERO Act articles, the proceeds on abandoned funds that Dave Sullivan highlighted, and what Taylor just highlighted about obtaining nomination papers. Then the 2 zoning articles that Leanne highlighted about the accessory dwelling unit, the non-conforming lots, and then the town bylaw, which is a general bylaw for short-term rentals. Should have told you that it's not required that we held a public hearing, because that was one of our questions when we started looking at for a town bylaw, but we thought it made sense, which is why it was scheduled for tonight. And then we have 2 petitioned articles, one related to banning alcohol containers less than 100 milliliters in size, and then an ordinance that's called Skip the Stuff, which relates to primarily takeout orders and what sort of plasticware and other things are given out when someone places a takeout order. And that's about it.
Thank you. Heather, just a quick overview on the opioid settlement.
So there's been a committee, a working group, interdisciplinary, including the public that have experience with opioid addiction and recovery. That group will be meeting on the 15th of April to make a recommendation that's based on a very robust series of community engagement programming, as well as focus groups with very specific groups of stakeholders. That recommendation will include a variety of efforts, including recommendations for transportation and housing assistance, but the core focus is really on providing direct services to those in recovery or in addiction, or prevention efforts for young people and families. And what we'd like to be able to do is engage more than 1 year of services. So we're earmarked about, I can't remember the exact number, about $35,000 for that, but we want to recommend more funds for that so that we could engage a contract for 3 years. And that way, if we're satisfied with the programming in the first year, we could execute a second contract. Without having the funds in hand, it's difficult to attract qualified people. And we want people that are here for, the good programming for the long haul to serve the community. So it really is just to have a strong contract in place.
Great, thank you very much.
More of the same work.
And this settlement, what's the duration of the settlement again?
Well, the settlement funds go to, I think, 2031. It's quite a lengthy settlement period. We have had appropriated $120,000 for support programming, and that's what this exercise has been about, is programming those funds. And if you recall, that was, let's start with a small amount of money, see what the community needs, program those funds, and test out what's the most effective for the Sandwich community. We're at the point of making those recommendations. In the spring or early summer, we'll be doing the contracting around that. So this additional 50 is in support of that. It will not impact the primary focus of those fundings, as you all know, is the full-time social worker, which is working out excellently, collaborating with community and senior services, the police department, and multiple departments, and she's really having a big impact as an individual working with other departments.
Terrific, thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay.
So if you want, I'll just segue into the budget update. We just touched on a lot of it.
Please.
The quick summary is we haven't heard anything from the state. The Typical way the state budget works is the governor releases that budget at the end of January. You know, usually at some point in the next month, we'd hear from the House, then about a month later from the Senate. Then sometime in July, there'll be a conference committee of the House and the Senate. They make a recommendation, and then ultimately the governor signs off, usually on that conference committee recommendation, usually in mid-July or early August. So we have a ways to go. Sort of no news is good news. We based our budget based on the preliminary numbers that we saw from the governor at the end of January. As always, we underestimated the revenue assumptions, even with the numbers from January, and we overestimated our expenses just to be safe. So we haven't heard anything significant either way. I will say the only line item that we typically worry about is our sending tuition assessments for either charter or other public schools outside of Sandwich. The preliminary number was actually less than what it was the year we're in now, but we budgeted for an increase still just to be safe. The numbers that you see in January aren't based on the enrollment data that those schools provide in October, so the first time you'll get a look at that number is when the House comes out with its budget. So that's probably the one line that I'll look at the fastest just to make sure we're okay, but we're not concerned about it. We feel good. And I think just in general, and I know Heather and Bill Jennings, our finance director, would want to say the same thing, that like we're really appreciative of the support from the select board, the finance committee, and the public for several like long needed initiatives that people supported last year, and we expanded it for a few other things with the really the lion's share of the additions related to those DPW public infrastructure investments. And I think we say it all the time, but the roads and the drainage are two of our most visible things we have in town, and we know we need to put more money into them. So we're trying to find a way that it would be better to have recurring costs budgeted so we can complete some of that work. So we really want to thank everyone for their support, and hopefully we get the support in May. And I know we've had some early discussions for next year's budget, meaning FY27 and the one after that, and our goal is to give you the most vanilla, basic, no new service budgets you will ever see, and I will look forward to giving those to you because you know, the few things that we've implemented the last year and a half have made a huge difference every day with a lot of departments, a lot of the small departments especially, even though when we looked at the numbers, 78% of all those improvements have gone to police, fire, DPW. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Bud? Okay. Marina and Town Neck area parking and safety improvement efforts.
I hope this mic is working. So I feel like somebody in the atmosphere would let me know. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I presented to you some safety improvements and some operational recommendations related to kind of the beach area and the marina. Three of them actually require a process with the select board. So I gave that recommendation to you with some time to think about them. Those that I'm asking for your recommendation on whether to move forward relate to creating a fee for parking in the marina parking lot. And that would be for those that don't have a marina sticker and don't have a beach sticker. It would be a nominal fee. We'll have a team looking at it actually tomorrow, making a recommendation on what that fee should be, but we would need to have a fee hearing to implement that. So in your packet, you have a draft fee hearing. We'd look at doing that on April 24th. The other item is designating no parking on the east side of Gallo Road. Make sure I've got my directions correct, yes. We've made some improvements to what's been informal parking on the west side, which we support and encourage, but having parallel parking on both sides of the road, the public safety departments are concerned about that and recommend no parking on the east side of the road. So if you're comfortable with moving forward with those, we would advertise them with the recommended fee, bring them back to the select board for a hearing in April. The last item that would need select board approval is a fairly minor one. As you recall, we are going to increase the number of parking enforcement officers using beach staff and marina staff with the support of the assistant harbor master and the rec director. Their staff would be willing to do some parking enforcement in that area. Just in, the police department have a really difficult time responding timely to those with all the other things they need to do. Those duties have been included in the seasonal job descriptions already, so the new hires would have that responsibility, but when hired, this board would have to appoint them into that role. So the two I'm asking about are Gallo Road, no parking, and a potential fee for the marina lot.
Okay.
I just need head nods, I think. I don't think we need a vote, just if you want to move, we'll move forward if you're comfortable with that.
Okay, let's do that. Sounds like a plan to me. I just had to laugh, if you don't mind. Every time I read these draft notices, it's this year, right?
Do I have 24 on there? No, it's 25, yes.
Okay, thank you
Get
very much.
correct the year. Sorry.
I'm easy to confuse, and I was getting confused. Thank you. Okay, let's move on, right? We have a consensus? Yep. Extension of land development agreement, Wing School Phase 2.
That's me, again.
Okay.
Very briefly, this is good news. The land development agreement allows SCG Development to move forward with their second phase. They, of course, had that authority. Our land development agreement had lapsed. It went through 2024. They have very good news from the federal government and the state government on the financing that they need, and they're hoping to close at the end of the summer, fall timeframe, which would allow them to move forward with the construction of another 41 units. It also includes an extension on the third phase, which was tied to wastewater in the area to 2029. So it's good news.
It is. Okay. Motion to approve. Any other discussion, I'm sorry? Motion to approve.
Make a motion, we agree to the extension of the commencement and completion and construction dates of Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the project for the 2-year extension deadlines for each phase of the project as set forth in the project development schedule, with Phase 2 commencing in July 2025 and Phase 3 commencing in July 2029.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockton. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
news, indeed.
And they did sign those papers today, and they're going to get us the originals, so we'll put it in your sign folder.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
awesome.
Thank you. Other matters not reasonably anticipated. The chair, I have none. Anybody else? A new business, well, actually, the first one
We did.
handled already.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. White. And authorization to appoint harbor master.
Yeah, I would just stress that this gives me the authorization to appoint any department head position. I need the select board's approval under the charter, so I guess what I'm seeking is your authorization to appoint a new harbor master. And for the reasons spelled out in your packet, which I'll get into a couple of them, I'm recommending the authority to be able to appoint Nick Giordano, who's our current assistant harbor master. And a lot of his background is spelled out in the letter and in the attached cover letter, which he submitted when he submitted his application and his resume. I will say that this position has caused us some issues through the years, and so I made sure that I was very careful in involving as many department heads as possible to assist in the process. So Charlie's well aware because he represented the select board on the rounds of interviews, and Heather and Marie Buckner, our HR director, sit on everything. But in addition to that, we included Director of Community Services, Guy Boucher. And then once we hit the second round of interviews, I also asked if Leanne Drake from Community Development and Police Chief Jason Keene could sit in as well. Many may not know, but shortly after he got out of the service, Jason actually worked at the marina for a while before he entered the police force, and now he's the chief. And I can't thank the people who participated enough, because it's something that we talked about for days. We tried to, second guess each other, and it's fair to say that after we talked everything over, sat on it for a while, every single person came to the same conclusion. And so that's why I'm recommending Mr. Giordano for the authority to appoint him. And a lot of the positive things are spelled out in the letter about why we're asking for this authority. And then the only other thing I would say is I never make a recommendation to the board unless I think someone's qualified. And I always recommend the most qualified person. Doesn't matter if you've worked with the town before or not, or if, it doesn't matter who you know. It's what you know and how you act and your professionalism, etc. So that's really important to me, especially with this job. So I'm seeking your authority to make that appointment.
He gave 2 good interviews, and he's been working the town for the past few years, and he's been cognizant, outgoing. The committee, the staff, the group thought he was a good choice, obviously. So here we are.
Yeah, and yesterday I actually went down and I met with the East Boat Basin Commercial Fisheries Group, and they actually gave me a letter supporting him as well with 12 signatures that I'd like to informally submit as well.
Okay. And can we include this in the record?
Will do.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Hocker. Okay.
Okay. Like I had said with the building inspector, we've been trying to hire from within as we work our way up our ladder in the department. And I think here we are again with another example of hiring from within. And I had a couple of calls today. I met with Bud and Heather, and some concerns on different things, and I went down and met with the assistant harbor master and talked with him, and I had a good conversation with him, and I think we got a lot of things cleared up, that some questions I had and people had. So at that point, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the town administrator, George Dunham, to appoint Nicholas Giardino to the new harbor master.
Second?
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hocker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Okay.
Recommended alternate appointment to Cape Light Compact, Town Planner Steve Tucker.
So Leanne's our designee to the Cape Light Compact, and at times with schedules, it's difficult to fit everything in, and so I thought it would make a lot of sense. So in her recommendation to recommend to appoint Steve Tucker, our town planner, as the alternate designee to the Cape Light Compact, which we're allowed to do.
Okay. Make a motion, we appoint as an alternate to the Cape Light Compact, Town Planner Steve Tucker.
Second?
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hocker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Okay. Other matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair.
Can I make Can I mention a quick one?
Sure.
Just a really quick one, and I plan to put it on the agenda next week, or if we have to do it the following week, we can. But Woody Mitchell has been our designee to the Cape Light Compact. In fact, he's been the chairperson of the Cape Light Compact, the Cape Cod Commission, and he's been the chair of the commission for at least a decade. So he's, for things going on, he's going to have to step down. He's been great about reaching out to me and keeping in touch. And then one thing that he and Christy Senatori, the director of the Cape Cod Commission, even though his appointment from the town expires at the end of April, they really would like him to stay on until July 1st, because that's when they revote their leadership. So Woody's willing to do that. Christy would love it if the board would entertain that. So I was going to put that on your agenda next week. And then, again, with Leanne's leadership, trying to identify someone who's knowledgeable, because the type of work that the commission does is so related to like planning, zoning, higher level regional stuff. Matt Schimmel, who's been on several of our boards through the years, is currently on the Historical Commission, not the Historic District Committee, and is chair of the Community Preservation Committee, is very interested in serving on the commission. So we're going to work with him on trying to get a letter from him to express interest, and if that's ready to go, we hope to have that on your agenda next week.
And that'll include his background.
Exactly, yep.
And just a word about
Yeah,
Woody's just
amazing.
just terrific. A real compliment to the town of Sandwich. He's been, as he's served on the commission and in other functions in town. Bikeways and pedestrians, one of my favorites. Yes. Oh, terrific. Okay.
And Woody plans to come next week too, so.
Oh, fabulous. Okay. Anybody else for public comment? Yes, sir. Just if you would make sure that the green light is on, please, and then state your name and address.
Jeffrey Richardson, 3 Elmy Ave, commercial fisherman in Sandwich. On the thing that was sent out on March 25th, I think it was, I was reading through it, and for the parking lot, it seems like Treehouse is still going to be using or utilizing, possibly for a fee, to park in those spots over there. The marina's an enterprise fund. It's self-sufficient. We don't ask the town for money. And per our meeting last night with Shane, it's pretty much a net zero, it sounds like. Why is the town requesting marina staff who are paid from the enterprise fund to do town duties? Why are we using pretty much the enterprise fund to do taxpayer dollars, to do tax work? There's multiple cases of marina staff watching parking lots for Treehouse. We don't get reimbursement for, well, I don't think we get reimbursement for us to do that duty. When I'm a commercial slip holder, there's 40 other slip holders, recreational slip holders, who pay into this fund. Why are we paying our staff to watch someone else's duty? And there's been multiple cases, not just that, multiple cases of the marina truck plowing town neck. Is the town paying us their hourly? It comes out to thousands of dollars. If we're running net zero, we're running net zero. But it seems like there could possibly be thousands of dollars that we're not getting reimbursed for, but we're doing tax dollar work. It just doesn't seem like it just seems like, not to sound rude, it sounds like getting taken for granted and using without getting reimbursed for everything. It's because, like I said, if we're running net zero, it's thousands of dollars that could be used for our winches, like I said, I'm a commercial fisherman, our winches, docks, pilings, but I don't think we see any reimbursement for any of this. And there's been multiple times that I live in Town Neck, and there's plow trucks that says Sandwich Harbor Master on it, plowing the streets. And I think we're at, what, $110, $120 an hour that you pay contractors out to plow? But instead we're paying, be it one of the employees or even the assistant harbor master, now the harbor master, salary to plow town roads. That's just it kind of tweaks me a little bit that there's tax dollar usage, but you're kind of getting it for free. And it just doesn't seem fair to me. But I might be wrong on all what I'm saying, but it just seems like you're grabbing tax dollar employees, but you're kind of not reimbursing us for what we put into this fund, and not say you're stealing it, but there's nothing coming back with it.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your comments and perspectives. We can't interact during public forum. Thank you very much. Okay, closing remarks?
I got one thing under other matters, it's not reasonable, we still should. How are we doing on the bandstand at the wing school? Seeing we talked about the wing school.
I would have to check in. My green light is perpetually on, so that's why I'm making a funny face. Check in with the Director of Facilities, but he had to go out to bid for the contracting crew to do that. I think that was due, could be even due this week, so it's moving along.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay.
I just had two things. One, first, I just want to apologize for my tardiness this evening. I was stuck, a 3-hour trip turned into a 5-hour return trip. But the other thing, at the beginning, one other thing I did this past week was I was able to go in, and I hope that the students are watching, but I was able to go in with the 8th grade civics class again. And they asked this year, ironically, 3 of the 5 classes actually brought up the condition of the exterior school playing fields, all the sports fields and the general condition of that. And they too are going to try and, and it was it's always a good interaction, the questions that they ask, how they can fund it, how things in town get funded. So it was so the Mr. Duffany, the teacher at the school, always does a excellent job kind of flushing that out. And he kept saying, you guys, do you want to talk about something else when the select member comes in? But they all said, no, it's the fields. So it was a really good conversation with them. It's always fun to go, listen to the students. And I know that they're looking to push forward to the next step with it to assist the town and try and make things better for themselves, which was really encouraging to hear. So it was good. That's all I got.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Bob? Mr. George, excuse me?
I'm good. You can call me Bob.
Okay. And then I have a few, if you don't mind. Bikeways and pedestrians met on March 17th. The Service Road Shared Use Path. The punch list is being developed and implemented. The canal connection to the service road, additional public forum is under discussion for August. Grant application to cover Quaker Meeting House Katuitt is inclusive of sidewalks. Bike racks at town offices, as well as the SCAL, 5 locations have been selected. Sandwich Recreation, kids mountain bike program. The registration is open, and it'll be 4 to 6 Wednesdays. Progress. As Mr. Dunham mentioned earlier, the Finance Committee endorsed the fiscal 26 budget on the 25th. On the 19th, the school strategic planning Committee met. Progress, their next meeting is April 30th. School Committee. A couple of interesting aspects from last night's meeting. The Plymouth Public Schools have been accepted into the Cape Cod Collaborative. It's a nice addition, I think, for both events or activities. Then, Dr. Quinn made a presentation on the Sandwich participation in the Innovation Career Pathways Program. In this initial year of the computer science pathway, the Sandwich team received the 1-8 Foundation's Student Industry Connect Award. The team developed 2 new pathways currently under review for official designation, and the team consisted of, Prisha Bajrakaira, nice young lady, a gentleman, Finn Hochter, as well as Holland Outie. Congratulations to all. And then Athletics Director Donovan provided a winter sports season update, a good season. And if I may, Sunday here in Town Hall, Sandwich Boy Scout Emmett J. Rockwell will be promoted to Eagle Scout at 1 p.m., as I said, here in historic Town Hall. And other than that, if you don't mind, I'd just like to please maintain the conditions in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, the overall threats to world peace, and all those affected by natural emergencies in our thoughts and prayers. And then, we would like to close the public meeting, enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A. The chair declares that having an open session may have a detrimental effect upon the town's bargaining, litigating, or negotiating position as applicable. Purpose number 3, a litigation strategy, national opioid litigation. If we can have a motion to close the general and open the executive, and our next general meeting is next Thursday, April 3rd, at 7 p.m. here in historic Town Hall.
Make a motion, we close the regular meeting and go to executive session.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hochter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. See you next Thursday. Have a good evening, everyone.